Welcome to the IP2 podcast. I'm Shea Ashby, and as always, I'm joined by Felix Chung.
Frédéric St-Laurent was our first guest on our podcast, and we're incredibly happy to welcome him back. Not only is he our judge community representative in Canada, but he was also the head judge for our national championship earlier this month. Welcome back, Fred.
Thanks for having me again. Always a pleasure to be on the show. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm doing good too. Fred is joining us at a very late hour for himself, and we do appreciate that very much. Yeah. Even the 2-hour time difference between us seems like a lot some days. But yeah, I was listening to our previous interview, and even though it was like 5 or 6 months ago, it definitely holds up. So we had so much left to discuss even then, and now so much has happened. Yeah, how have things been?
Things been quite busy, actually, like both in real life with work and with Flesh and Blood with nationals, a bunch of premier events abroad, even more events coming, namely Dallas, end of October, and Barcelona also for the Worlds. I'm going to be there. So
nice.
Getting ready, planning things with other players, trying to make sure that the whole trip we can actually share rooms, Airbnbs, if we can actually be there together, like to enjoy the event, enjoy the whole place, and also save a bit and make sure that save on the expenses basically.
Yeah. How do you find time for all of this?
Good question. To be honest. I try to find a time. I mean, usually it's more of a just managing my time with work. It's usually fine. I can just take day off. So I just do some overtime, just pile up the extra hours, and then I can take a couple of days off.
So it's not really costing you your vacation time.
Oh no.
Oh, okay, good.
And in other accolades, I mean, besides all of these things, you were also nominated as the Judge of the Month on Judge Hub, and I will definitely link everyone to this article, which everyone should read. How did that happen, Fred? Like, how's that nomination process?
I think it was in Baltimore. I think I spoke with Joe Trick from Poland, who's a fellow French Canadian, who is... I guess he prefers like Eastern Europe instead of a good old local poutine, I guess. Basically he's living in Poland, and I know we were chatting, having a lot of fun. And yeah, just like through the idea of just, I think like put my name in the hat. And I guess he did, and I got picked.
Yeah. I mean, what did it feel like reading that article and just... seeing that it was about you, like at this nomination, at this award?
Well, it felt quite special. I actually said it in the article, like in the interview. I'm still a newborn baby judge compared to other judges we had the chance to work with. So. It's always like fun and also quite, it's really humbling. Like, I'm just trying to do my best on the floor. I just really try to do my best, try to make sure people are having a great time, and players, other judges, and to see that effort recognized, it's always it's a good feeling. Then again, I'm always the kind of person who I don't seek to be, in the limelight, and be, on the front of things. So it's always also a bit like out of my comfort zone, but it's a good challenge as well. Like to, just be more, that kind of exposure or that kind of thing that I actually need to, interviews, and even like the podcast. It's always a nice challenge, like to actually, go out there, and be maybe just a bit less like shy and stuff, and just open up to people.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that you talked about extensively in our previous interview was, yeah, you step into an event as a new judge or a baby judge, as you call yourself, and you're working side by side with people that have 10 years, 20, 25 years of experience
Yeah.
judging card games, and it's easy to feel intimidated or that you're never ever going to catch up to those people and their level of experience, but really your story is quite inspirational in a way because like you said, you just started with Flesh and Blood. Really, you didn't have much experience with other card games, but still now here you are getting all these accolades and being recognized for everything that you do. Like, that is very inspiring.
Yeah, and hopefully it's gonna yeah, definitely like inspire people to just, try to do the same. Just go out there, go to those events, go like try to knock at those doors, and just try to make it happen. And just when you're there, as I said in the article, like just do your best. And yeah, all those experienced people, like just be a sponge and just get all that information, all the knowledge you can get from those events, from those judges. You never know when you will have to, put it into good use. Could it be at a local event or at a national where actually you're being asked to be the head judge? So,
Oh yeah.
So, Fred, I wanted to talk about Flesh and Blood in Canada. Since we last spoke in May, you were really positive about the state of the game. How do you feel about it? Like about 5 months later, is it still the same? Is the game shrinking? How's the vibe?
the vibe is pretty good. I do believe the game is still growing. The player bases, I do believe they are also still growing. Like I know, I'm not sure, maybe also in your area, like shops who are used to get, Road to Nationals or ProQuest, now no longer getting them,
Yep.
other stores getting them. And when you look at the demographics, like, yeah, there's some areas where there's way much more people playing, or like armories that used to have maybe 5-10 people, now 20-30 people. So,
Mhm.
so I think the game's growing, especially with the like the pre-release this weekend of Bright Lights, and especially the round the table product, the multiplayer product. I know a lot of people who were like waiting for that kind of like thing
Yep.
to be out there so they could like try the game and enjoy the game. So this is going to bring also, I think, a good influx of like more casual players, which is like a great thing for the game. So
Are you privy to that kind of information about like where the game is seeing the growth in players and armories? And so I know you kind of touched on that, like some areas were losing tier 2 events and stuff like that. Is that something that you're in contact with LSS, that you get to have some information?
No, actually, I'm not. It's basically just looking at events or tournaments, and just in Quebec.
Okay.
There's many more players in the Montreal area. There's local game stores who, yeah, just didn't used to have events. Now they are hosting events, and people are going out there. So it's really it's a small sample, but I'm
Gotcha.
pretty sure it's representative of like the broader player base all over Canada, and also, yeah, like because in Quebec City we used to have like 2 ProQuest and 2 RTNs, and now we're down to 1.
Okay.
But then like our community like didn't grow as much as maybe like for example, like in Montreal or in other areas. And I mean, yeah, like there's some places there's some cities you can now play Flesh and Blood every single night of the week if you want to. So especially like in the bigger cities.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious because we also suffered the same fate. We lost an event.
We got it back.
But we got it back, yes, because some people had some conversations. So
yeah,
but we had to fight for
those,
it, though, right? We had to fight for it. It wasn't.
But for those, it's basically you have to write at, like, if you're a store owner, or if you're like having question about this, op@fabtcg.com is where it happens. So
yeah. Okay. Do you know if the judge program in Canada has kept pace with the requirements of like the OP program?
It did. I mean, a year ago at this date, there was 1 level 2 judge in Canada. Now we are 10, so just by numbers, number of L2s went tenfold, which is a good thing.
Yep.
But yeah, basically, like I would say, for our area, like we're doing good. Again, I think the goal was to get L2s in every provinces and territories. We're missing like the Maritimes again, and I think it's just a matter of having a couple like L1s over there.
Yep.
Just need them to have their exam done, and then have someone being able to evaluate them. Otherwise, feels like Saskatchewan is just like a void or something.
Zone.
Like yeah, it seems to be a dead zone right now for Fab. Otherwise, in Quebec, we have a bunch of L2s. Ontario, we have a couple. Now we have one in Manitoba. We have two in Alberta, and we have at least one in BC. And let me check the numbers real quick.
I mean, isn't Felix basically a pseudo maritime judge at this point?
No, like they have such an amazing community out wherever I go to Moncton. Actually, they're just starting up their second armory, and they're a city of I think 150,000 people. Please don't quote me on that, but yeah, they seem to love the game, and I am there for it.
Which is awesome because like a city like Saskatoon, who is whatever north of 300,000, close to 400,000, barely has the game there. So that's really awesome for them out there in the Maritimes.
You need to go hit up your old family, Shea, see what's up.
Well, I still talk to my friends all the time, and they go do their Fab event out of town once every 2 weeks. Yeah, and it's like just the two of them. So yeah. I don't know how to start to begin to foster that.
Yeah,
because if people don't want to pick up the game, people don't want to pick up the game. But maybe something like an Ira Deck event.
Yeah,
could be a way to
or something like the professor product that's coming out too.
Yeah. Yeah, just have your LGS, just get the social kit, and then just have like those kind of like a UPF event or Blitz Deck Precon event. So and that's actually a thing. Like there's a couple of LGSs, like they're having customers like looking at the precons and asking questions about the game, and like Storn is having to say, well, I mean, you can buy this, but then this one with the lady in green, like you cannot play her anymore, or that big like ICI, you cannot play this deck anymore. So people won't just buy the precon. Like I'm talking about the Briar precon and the Hold'em precon, like those technically, like you cannot, like the Hold'em one, you cannot even play with it anymore in Blitz, even out of the box. So having an actual, and that format is supported, it's precon Blitz deck. You just like basically have one of the precons either out of the box or a list that just replicates the exact deck list, and you can just play with that. Like no ban list, no nothing. You just take out the deck, take it out, sleeve it up, play it. So those are great for like casual social events.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just look back on the numbers, and we have for L2s, it's right now it's one in BC, two in Alberta, one in Manitoba. We have 3 in Ontario, and the remaining is in Quebec.
Okay. One final question on this topic. Do you have any, what are your top concerns or projects heading into the next year as the JCR for Canada?
I would say the next thing is to make sure that we are ready for our first bigger events. I know there's a calling coming technically at some point in 2024. I don't know where or when. I'm not privy to that information. So then again, just at least making sure we have, people ready for that. Otherwise, trying to get, L2s in the missing areas we're missing, and try maybe to grow even a couple more L2s in a couple more areas. Make sure that any judge in Canada like willing to travel, like do the bigger events, are aware of the opportunities and how accessible it can be if you can front the time and money. I know for some people it's a matter of time getting like off days. For some people it's I would say like people would be surprised how easy it is to break even like traveling, depending where you live, of course. But if you're close to a flight hub, it can be quite affordable. Of course, you have to pay hotel and flight upfront, but once you get the compensation back, if you don't spend too much on side things, you can break even, at least break even, or make it the whole weekend going to cost you maybe $150, $50 to $100 max.
Yeah,
so
make it pretty reasonable.
Yeah, and you get to be at those events, meet other judges, gain experience, maybe get that recommendation you need, and that's I would say that's the first step, to open up those opportunities, to get to those big the big events like Pro Tours and Worlds Abroad.
Yeah,
and otherwise, starting to think about maybe the next JCR. I think Canada is planned to have the rotation early next year. I think.
Okay.
You're gonna reapply though, right?
I was gonna follow up and ask you if you were gonna reapply or what your plan was.
It depends. If because right now there's only one seat for JCRs in Canada. I'm pushing and pestering a lot of people at LSS to make sure we have at least two, maybe split the country in two, to make it more easier to manage. So I would say if there is two, say an East-West thing, I guess I could see myself applying again for the eastern part, of course. Or if it's a English-French thing, definitely would apply for the French part. But to be honest, I would like to have someone else, then again, take the seat just for the sake of having that, getting into it and getting the experience,
Yep.
So oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I was actually going to ask you if you actually think that the size and geography of Canada is a detriment to there being only one JCR. I know you mentioned you'd like two.
Yeah. Oh, it is.
But does it actually? Yeah, it does impact you.
Yeah, it's more just not just about time zones, but also to have someone I guess more relatable, or someone closer. You can relate to, I guess, because in the States, it's split in several parts, a couple states grouped together. So I feel it's easier for me to be able to talk with people say in Ontario in the Maritimes, because they just it's folks in Ontario, it feels closer than people all the way in the west, to BC or Alberta, So and if for some reason I'm needed somewhere for some reason, it's easier for me to say, okay, so I need to travel maybe at some point to Toronto or to Moncton to see the folks, in New Brunswick, versus, okay, now I need to go all the way all over the country, in BC for XYZ. So I think it would be it would be better to have at least someone closer in the west and closer in the east to manage things.
Now, I was just thinking about it too. There's always regional differences that somebody that's closer to the population and region has, knowledge or understanding of how it is. And same with cultural differences, even just across different provinces. There's, cultural differences even between Alberta and British Columbia, and we're adjacent to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, and we won't get into the whole, the French Canadian and non-French Canadian thing. but still, but yeah, culturally as well. Should we have one JCR per province? I don't think so. We're not that big of a judge community for that yet. But yeah, at least having an East-West would make things much easier to even just to manage, even if only for a cultural and time zone thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to talk about Canadian nationals in a little bit, but you were at the Calling Las Vegas. Can you tell us about how that was for you?
It was fun. It was really fun. Definitely helped me get a few things ready for nationals. For me, that was an opportunity to get some last minute details and experience. So like before Nats. So I was really looking into where the head judges, like all of the speeches, like the way they were like running the drafts and everything. So all of the small details, like things, I was like not sure how to run them like properly, or like I wouldn't say perfectly, but I'd able to, okay, like those details like do matter. I need to be aware of that. And yeah, I could definitely pick up a few things during Vegas that could bring back like for nationals.
Do you have an example that you could share with us? Or even any interesting stories that you might that come to mind?
Let me start with one. I love head judge of the calling, the support judge for the calling, Amanda's start of round announcement, like calling players, welcome to round 3. You have 55 minutes. You may begin. Like I love that so much. Now I copy that. That's just a little one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like sometimes like you're not sure how you should do like those announcements, and sometimes just like, yeah, it's as simple as that. Like just round time, you may begin. That's it, done. There's always the round before the final standings, like the whole PSA, like you have to remind people like about concessions, and like if they're not sure what they can say or cannot say, they better call a judge, like those kind of reminders as well.
Yeah.
Well, you were sort of, I guess, trying to get some more information about what the head judges were doing. Were you able to actually shadow anybody or talk to one of the more seasoned judges about what you could improve upon or something to look out for before you were doing the Canadian Nationals head judge?
For this one, I wasn't able to shadow a head judge. It was mostly like me doing the things I had to do, and on the side when I would like see something, or I knew, okay, like, so when this is gonna happen, I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna pay attention to what's happening and just take mental notes and then write them down like at some point later during my day.
Okay.
That being said, I was in talk with Gerard, who was head judge for the calling at Vegas for that calling, and I did spoke with him about a few things, like if possible, if I could be like in the loop. For that specific event, it was not possible, but it is definitely something that like you can like ask your head judge at an event or your team lead, like basically if there is something you would like to work on, or if there's like information you would like to get during an event, like talk with your head judge, talk with your team leads. Like if they can accommodate, they will try. Then again, like as Sarah told me, like he wasn't able to guarantee that it would be able to, but he would definitely like look out for opportunities, and if something like would fit, then it would definitely like be aware that, okay, like Fred like isn't like would like to be part of XYZ. So yeah, so it's definitely something like you definitely like don't be afraid to ask like beforehand, like if there's a few things or areas like that you would like to get some experience or expertise or anything, like go ahead and ask. Like if they can accommodate, they will. If not, it is what it is. But if they can, they will definitely make sure that you get that knowledge or experience you need.
Did you have a chance to enjoy Vegas, or do you have any fun Vegas stories to share with us? Or were they so much fun you don't remember them?
Yeah. The judging weekends are always just so busy. Usually at the end of the day, the only thing I want to do is just like rest and like talk with the local locals, like local players, and get some rest. That being said, the one thing though that was a pleasant surprise is the quality of the food over there, like at the restaurants, like the food courts. Mm-hmm. I'm extremely picky when it comes to restaurants. I'm the kind of guy who, if I order a meal and like the portion, or say if I order something that's like $35 and I get my plate and it just feels like, okay, this is like not par for the price, I will return, and I will just say, okay, no, this doesn't do. I will take something else. Or I'm the kind of person who will do this. That being said, in Vegas, I was blown away how the food was actually good for the price. Like, it was expensive, but it was worth it. Like, I was like, oh my, there's and I don't remember the name, but there's an Italian restaurant at the venue we were at the Westgate, and it was just amazing. It was like amazing. Everything was just so good.
Yeah, it was hard not to eat very well in Vegas. I'll put it that way.
Oh yeah.
It was
yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have said that, or some people have said that they're sick of going to Vegas time and time again for Flesh and Blood, but I want to go again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the whole vibe, and to be honest, it looks like an actual nice place. Like the geography and everything. Like yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the food, because, like, man, when I started going to Vegas a long time ago, food was cheap there. Like, that was kind of one of the things as to why you kind of spent time in Vegas, was you could go get really good meals for cheap. I remember when my wife and I first went there, we found some barbecue place, like a block off of the strip, and we got a steak with green beans and a salad and a 16-ounce beer, and it was like $7.
Wow.
It was crazy cheap. But I hear now that, the food's still good there. Portions are still ridiculous, but the prices have gone up.
Yeah, but then, like, I didn't felt like, okay, I'm overpaying. Like, it felt on par for the course. Yep. Definitely. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's hop into the thing that's been keeping you busy for the past several months, and the reason why you can't party with me in Final Fantasy XIV. That's your preparation for Canadian Nationals. So Shea's going to ask you later specifically about the near catastrophe that you averted, but I guess more generally speaking, have you had a chance to reflect on Canadian Nationals now that it's been a couple weeks, and what are your general thoughts on how it went?
Like, in a nutshell, I think the event was quite a success, to be honest. I think that like, all of the feedback I've got so far is just positive. Or at least for my local players, people had fun, people enjoyed their weekend. Overall, I think everything, like, I think the only thing that I've heard that was, like, quote negative is about space. Like, it was maybe a bit small, like, for like circulating between tables was, like, always a bit tricky at the beginning of rounds. But otherwise, my feelings that, like, people were happy at the event. I know, like, for judges, it was a really busy weekend. There was a lot to do, and we were not as much as we should have been. But still, overall, positive event. I think the expectations were also pretty high. Like, I know, like, the first two nationals were not as good as people would have hoped. So I'm not sure if actually expectations were actually high, or maybe, like, the war was solo was solo. Like, people were just expecting, okay, it's going to be the same, and then we just did better. So it's maybe that. But yeah, overall, I think the event was a success. We managed to get there from beginning to end. The events ran quite smoothly up to some point. So I think everyone did a good job, like the whole team. Also, a little shout out to Steven. I know you had him earlier.
Yep.
So it was fun working with him and his team. And I think overall we can be all proud of the work we've done. And hopefully this is gonna set the standard. Like, hopefully next year, like, it should be at the minimum at the same level at how it was this year. Like, this should be like the bare minimum. Like, from this point, the only direction is like onwards and upwards. Like, let's try to improve on what happened this year, and whoever will be taking care of it next year, like, hopefully they're going to be even better than us.
Yeah, well, same as you. I haven't heard too much feedback, but what I have heard was great. except like you said, that the room was a little small, but now we know that we're going to have so many people showing up for not only the main event, but the side events as well.
Yeah.
So that's all really positive stuff.
And that was even one of the things that Steve had addressed on our last episode, was that he also wanted a bigger room, and it's something that he would work towards if he's given a second opportunity.
Yeah. And I mean, Fred, you were very involved with planning, though. Like, I remember even seeing you in Vegas a couple times, and you were poring over the seating charts for the venue, and you were saying, should the tables be horizontal or vertical? You know, we're going to lose half a draft pod if we put it this way versus that way. So, can you expand a little more on just your involvement in planning this event?
Like, basically it really started by I've got approached by Steven to be the head judge, and like the also taking care of like being the judge manager, like making sure like taking care of the assembling the team, helping him recruit people. And at some point basically I was just like looking over a few things about the tournament, and there's a few flags that was like, okay, maybe I should like raise this flag, or from what I've seen from like those bigger events, like this and that, we could probably tweak a things or two, like to have a smoother and better experience for the players. So I basically just got in touch with Steven and just basically addressed him those concerns, and like having those also solutions like already on hand. Like I think slowly I also kind of like started like co-TOing, like, or actually helping him more closely, like, with the logistic and stuff like about the tournament. Like basically if there was something I was aware that, okay, this could be a problem, that I would just, I would let him know and make sure that things get adjusted or fixed, or that the information like that we would need, we would have it. So, I asked him a lot of questions. I definitely kept him on his toes. I do believe he did actually appreciated that I was just there making sure he was on top of things. But at the beginning, I was not expecting this. But in the end, and it's kind of like a bit part of things we, as a head judge, I guess I could do, especially for like in a smaller community like that. Like if basically there's experience I have or expertise, and I can just, have that knowledge and like just give it to the TO. I don't see why I would just be like, oh no, this is just not this is not my job, it's not my title, therefore I won't do a single thing. That's not the way I usually also do things, even at work or on a personal level. So like for me, like, okay, there's something I can definitely help just by sharing information and like bringing like solution already. So I'm just going to go for it. If they take the feedback, they take it. Mm-hmm. If they don't, they don't. But at least I've said my piece and I've actually gave the feedback. So, but every time Steven was really receptive about any feedback or flags or anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a great like symbiotic kind of relationship that you had, because you had been to so many of these events that were run by Star City Games, and it's their business to run these events. They do dozens of these per year. So you know what the well-oiled machine looks like. And of course, the expectation is not that Steven or any other organization in Canada that only runs a couple of these big events a year to match that exactly, but you can bring all those lessons. And at the end of the day, that only makes the event better, and it makes your life easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
The day of as well.
Oh, yeah.
So in the weeks... go ahead.
Oh, and it would just be it would be unreasonable to expect, a small store like to be able to pull out something of the level of SCG, as you said. But there's definitely a few things, like the way they do things, that you can just take that and just adjust it and just scale it down to a local level and still make it work. So, and this is definitely something I would say if any store owner or is actually able to travel a bit, I would say get your L0, your L1, go apply just to do a weekend of scorekeeping with them, just to see how they do things. like just me, just by seeing how they run things, like not even doing scorekeeping or being like on the actual like, admin team, I could pick a few things. I can even imagine like how much more like info or experience you could get just by actually being there and just like working with them for a whole weekend, like, getting things done the way that they do those things, and they do it so very well that I would say like if someone can afford to just to go there and just be a scorekeeper for a weekend, work with them and try to learn, I think it would be like really beneficial.
So with all the planning done as best as you could, were you feeling confident going into the event that it would go well, or were you really nervous waiting for something wrong to happen? How did that go?
I mean, as with anything in life, you can prepare as much as you can for the unexpected, but the unexpected will and may end up happen. And when it happens, you have to just I would say deal with it. So like that part was like, at some point we just, let's go and see what happens. The one thing though, I would say like two of my main concerns. The first one was about our team. If we would at some point like spread too thin and not be able to cover everything like properly. That was my main concern. Otherwise, it was, I guess, more on a personal level. I mean, it was still like the first, like, okay, like big event that I would be head judging, which means speeches, calls and stuff in English, which is something I'm not that used to. So, I guess I was a bit worried that I would like fumble too much. And I would say once the initial speech was like going, I was like, okay, this is fine. I'm good. I got this. So, and also I guess like the first draft is always like on a logistic standpoint, it's always like kind of tricky to pull off. Like you have to change things, put papers and distribute products. There's going to be new player drafting, so there might be issues. But yeah, I guess those were my main concern, like the well-being of the team throughout the weekend, the draft portion, and just like me personally, like am I be able to like to pull it off and make sure like things get done, like if basically like just me doing my job properly and make sure that my broken English don't cause like too much problem. So
no, your English is fine.
Thanks.
It's better than a lot of people that I hear that are native speakers.
So we had Steve on last week, as we kind of mentioned earlier. He touched on the round 6 issue at the Canadian Nats. Can you go into a little bit more detail and kind of explain what happened and what you had to do to fix the issues?
Yeah, so this part, and like to be honest, at some point, like I remember bits of it, but I think like on the moment I was just so much in, I just switched into my like professional crisis management mode that I don't recall like everything.
Sure.
But yeah, it was the last round. Basically, we're ready to start the second draft. So I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to look at the results and make sure. And then I realized, okay, hold on. I don't see round 6 in Jam. I see round 5. Where is round 6? And I'm like, okay, we were running Jam on 2 computers. I'm like, okay, spoke with Alba, like they were our scorekeeper. It's not showing up on their computer as well. Somehow the data is no longer there. It seems to be gone. Crap. We're in like, okay, like the unexpected is happening. This is like worst case. Okay, this is bad. What do we do?
Just for accuracy, the words that came out of all of our mouths was not crap. It was something different. But
oh yeah,
please continue.
Paint the correct picture.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, like the first thing was really like triple checking. Okay, is the data really just really gone? Like, it's not okay? It's just not there. It's not salvageable. We don't have the standings. We don't have anything. Okay, this is bad. It was the end of the first draft, so a lot of people dropped from that point. So just saying, okay, we're just gonna say, okay, sorry, we're gonna redo the round. No, it's impossible because now some people have actually left because of that specific loss, and it's a draft, so they might already have got rid of their draft pool. So like the thing was like, okay, redoing the round is just impossible without like damaging the whole tournament at a level I cannot. Right now, I'm just thinking about it and I'm like, oh no way, this is just impossible. I don't see how this can be fixed properly without making, like, people would end up unhappy, very unhappy. I have to find a way to fix this because redoing the round is just not doable. It's just impossible. I'm extremely happy we didn't have to do that. But yeah, definitely a situation where, and actually, that being said, like it's basically okay. So, but when a situation like this happens, like what should we do? I don't think it's anywhere in policy. Then again, I mean, what are the odds that something like that could happen? But it's definitely something that if you're not prepared or if you have no idea what to do, yeah, it can get pretty bad. So I would be quite curious to see LSS stance on this. Like if for some reason Gem screws up and we lose a round, what do we do? How do we deal with things? I don't think it's anywhere in policy. So, but thankfully for us, we were using a software called Purple Fox, which is maintained mainly by Aurélie Violette. Like she's from France. I do believe she's part of the French podcast L'Œil de Fidia. And she's also taking care of the Purple Fox software, which basically is a tool for scorekeeper and judges to keep track of matches, tables, time, penalties. That tool is amazing. We use it for every big events. Also, like big Magic events, they also use it. And so the way the tool works is basically you basically take the data from Gem and you just copy paste it into the software, like to get your pairings and results and everything. So it's basically you take the data from Gem and you one-to-one copy paste it into Purple Fox. Thankfully, we had the whole round was done when we lost the round, and all of the pairings were already in Purple Fox. And thankfully, all of the results were also exported, like all of the tables where we had the data. So I did ask our scorekeeper, like, okay, like the last thing they done on the computer and stuff, and it was basically, exporting data and stuff. So I was like, okay, so you haven't copied or pasted anything else since then, right? And they're like, yeah, right. Okay, please open Notepad and Control V. And then we had all of the results, all of the data just was there in Notepad.
Nice.
So it was still on the clipboard, so we were able to get it. It was also still in Purple Fox, but I really wanted a backup because at this point, my main concern was, okay, we have the data. I want the data in several places just in case. And that's basically just my IT background coming in. And okay, we need now just backup of that data. If we lose it if we lose it somewhere, we have to have it like available somewhere else just in case. Yep. So we had it in Notepad. We had it copied in a Google document, if I recall, just make sure to have a fallback plan. And then it was like, okay, so we have all the data from Gem. Now in Purple Fox, and actually like just the data directly from Gem in a Notepad document. Now, what we need to do is we're gonna recreate the round, repair everything one-to-one with what we have. Then again, the data we have was from Gem, and then every single results also one-on-one and triple check every single match to make sure we actually give the proper win to the proper person. So that's what we did. And in the end, we're just able to recreate the whole round, get every single pairings identical, every results. I think in the end, the only thing we might have missed is a couple drops. Some people dropping that we might not have, I think we didn't have the data. So I know that in a couple subsequent rounds, like some people left and they were still showing up in the pairings. I'm not sure if it's related to the problem we had and I had a couple players like who were curious about that. It could be that they just like didn't drop properly during their rounds. But otherwise, as far as points and standing and everything, we were good. Like there was fortunately there was like no mistakes. Everyone got their proper standings and points for this specific round. So
Sorry, we did the player meeting, Fred, right after we input everything. So we had full pods for everyone going to the second draft, except for the last pod.
Yeah.
So I think all the drops were sorted.
Okay, maybe, yeah. Okay, then again, it's maybe drops from like subsequent rounds after the draft. Then could be that.
That's what I think.
might. Then again, yeah, as I said earlier, just before, like this part is still a bit hazy because I was just so much in just management mode. It's a bit like you're just running on adrenaline, and then the thing that happens over, and you don't actually quite remember what happened or what you did. You just know that, okay, this is now fixed. All right, good. So
it was a blur for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
You mentioned that you immediately went into crisis mode and started dealing with the problem. So it doesn't sound like you had any time to really think about too much how disastrous this could be and sort of, I guess, panic and worry about it. What advice would you have for judges or TOs that encounter a difficult situation like this in the future?
First and foremost, stay calm. Don't panic. That's the first thing. Like if you need help from someone, like don't. If you're at the dead end, don't try to fix things by yourself. Ask someone for help or information if you need. If you do have a working solution that you know you're able to put off, make sure that people are aware that you have something in mind, that you got this, and that they have to trust you, because sometimes you may have a solution which might be a bit complex to explain.
Yep.
Or at least explain, like, the basics. So basically, I remember telling Steven, I'm gonna recreate the round. I have the data. I can do it. I'll take care of it, or something like that. That I told him. Yeah, but it's basically, stay calm. If you have a solution in mind, just make it happen. Make sure to inform your other judges, the players, of the situation. If it's not something too sensitive, like, you may want to wait until, we talked about technical issues. There was no specific mentions of, okay, we lost all of the data, because people would have started to panic.
Yeah.
So it's something you can, after the fact, and once everything is fixed, you can like give context if people ask you questions. But on the moment, you just say technical issues, we're working on it. And if for some reason, like, you cannot seem to get to find a solution or have a solution, try to seek help, other judges, TOs. In our case, if the worst case was like, okay, we lost the whole thing, it would have been, I would have tried to get in touch with LSS and ask them, okay, so what's the plan? What's the policy? Like, what does LSS want us to do in that situation? Like, what is LSS response? Like, what do I need to do to be, to comply with what they would like us to do for those kind of situations? And after that, if you can, try to troubleshoot or try to understand. Oh yeah, sorry, Felix, go ahead.
Or no, go finish.
Okay. I was about to say, of course, after that, if you can provide feedback or try to understand what happened, it's a good thing. In our case, was it because we were using Gem on two computers? Maybe not, because I spoke with other people and they are running Gem on two machines without any problems. But then again, I don't have an actual Gem account, so I cannot do like exhaustive, like extensive tests like I would like to do. Like the actual cause, like I would say the two things though that I think that could help just avoiding those kind of situation. And then again, I'm saying that it's just hypotheses. I haven't like done tests to prove like that is the actual cause. But I know we were running Gem on two computers. When we were imputing, like putting results and stuff, I'm not sure if we were refreshing the page before doing that. So is it because, say for example, if like I have Gem up and the page has some data or it's missing something, like if I click update, will it send my state of the page I have like before it being refreshed? Then again, I'm saying that I don't know how Gem works. It could be that.
Yeah. No, I just want to expand on one point that you had, Fred. And I mean, one thing that we always tell new judges is don't rush a call, right? Like the players want something done right, not done fast. There's no time pressure to make the world's fastest call. And going back to your point about communicating with players, Like we did grant some half-hour breaks. Like as soon
Yeah.
as we understood what the issue was and how much manual input it would take to recreate the round and everything, instead of setting like a super tight timeline for ourselves and say, okay, like everyone's cranky, they want to go home, like let's get this done in 5 minutes and everyone sit down, we'll get the pairings out right away. We just said, okay, like everyone go for supper, you have half an hour, we have to recreate everything that we need to prepare the next round pairings. Like you have to give yourself ample time.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
part of panicking is putting deadlines on yourself and just imagining that everyone wants everything done right now. But that's really not the case. And I do think that everyone appreciated getting the chance to have a break and knowing
Yep.
exactly what the time would be when that break would end, because we were able to give that time and to be able to start promptly after that, because we knew what we had to do and we gave ourselves the time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do believe I think we even gave them a second break, if I remember correctly. I know we're like, okay, like 30 minutes, and then, all right, yep, another 30 minutes because we still need to fix things. But yeah, definitely take the time you need to fix things, because in the end, if you try to save on time, people will be much more unhappy of a like mismanaged or like misfixed issue, then okay, like we had a big break, but then again, everything else went fine. And I had a lot of people who actually wanted the break. So like the timing was kind of good. And yeah, so there's a lot of people who actually were kind of like happy, like those break happened. At that time, they were not aware of the cause of it. But yeah, definitely take the time you need, because like trying to rush things, like it's basically like if you think on the short term and try to get things fixed quickly, it will result in much more damage on the long term, and you do not want that. And for something like as critical as what we have, we need to take the time we need to make sure things are just proper. And I wouldn't have cared if it would have took like 2 hours. But for this, it's basically, yeah, sure, it's 2 hours now, but it's for the sake of saving the whole tournament. So this is like a very little investment for what it means and what it's going to be worth in the end.
Definitely some sound advice in there. Slow down, take your time, find the experts that can help you with this, and trust the process. Before we stop talking about Canadian nationals, I noticed that the top 8 of Canadian nationals was 4 players from Quebec, I think, and 4 players from Ontario. So I was really surprised to see that it was just a 4-4 split. Can you shed a little bit of light on the Quebec flesh and blood scene? Like, is this something that you sort of had an expectation?
I do know, like in Quebec, we have a really good and strong, we have really like good players, strong players. Even in Quebec City, we might be really small compared to the Montreal area, but we had even 2 people from the Quebec area, Quebec City area, being in the top 8. Maxime Villeneuve, who actually made it to the finals, and we also had Nicolas Jamoul, so 2 of the local Quebec City players. Of course, there's a lot of, between Quebec and Montreal, like we go to the events, they come to our events. So there's still like we're still a bigger group. Of course, like the Quebec City crew is more close together, and the Montreal crew is also most close together. But then again, yeah, I think that we have like really strong players in Quebec. Ontario has also a great pool of players. And then again, we had Yuki who bubbled out 9th place. So then again, I would say it's quite an interesting split, but still, I do believe we have all over the country, we have like strong players. And also just a small side note, especially about Maxime, is not like, because, of family and stuff, he's not playing that much, but he's doing a lot on Talishar. He was telling me basically his time to practice is basically when he's putting his kid to bed. Like, it's just like jams games on Talishar while their kids are getting sleep. And even just by doing that, he's able to get the reps he needs to really compete at a really high level and stuff. So So yeah, and also another side note. Actually, one of the players who went to the nationals from Quebec City was a pretty new player. I think it was his second or third month into Flesh and Blood. Came to a Road to National with a, I would say, unorthodox Phi deck. Like the deck was not optimized, more relying on like Rise Up and Phoenix Form and Breaking Point, and he actually, like, just by the surprise effect, managed to qualify.
Nice.
Yeah, so nice. even beginners, like, basically, if they know their deck, even though it's not optimized, if they know how to play it, or if it's an actual meta call that no one expects, you can actually try to break through and make it to qualify for big events. So yeah, but I think it shows that all over the country we have like strong players, and that at least at the national levels, like wherever you're from, you have a chance to just make it to top 8, and even like make it even high in top 8, regardless of where you're from in Canada. Like so yeah, I think it just shows that we have a strong community, strong players, and hopefully all of those folks will have a good performance in Barcelona in November.
Yeah, and no one expects getting hit by Phoenix Form and Phi draws 3 cards.
Well, the one thing I wanted to say when you mentioned that was that, like, I feel like there's kind of like 2 ways to look at a tournament. Obviously, there's more than that, but there's the top 8, and then there's like winning. And a deck that has a surprise factor might not win an event, but it might be good enough to get you into the top 8.
Definitely.
And I didn't know that about Maxim, like being a father, like with such compressed time. That's I mean, hey, yeah, very impressive. It's not just a game for kids. Dads can compete too.
Yeah,
it's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for the behind the scenes look into Canadian Nationals. We're going to move on to some fun policy discussion, and we do want to get your perspective as a seasoned judge at this point. Things like missed triggers and takebacks and the role of judges to step in when errors are noticed have been a very hot topic within the Flesh and Blood community within the last month. And here we don't cover red hot topics or talk about specific calls or anything, but it has cooled down a little bit. And I really wanted to ask you, Fred, as someone that has performed the role of coverage judge at high profile events like back in PT Baltimore, can you tell us the responsibilities for a judge to step in and intervene or pause the game if you notice something like a missed trigger or a game rules violation or something like that?
Yeah, usually when we are like watching a table, either for coverage or just at the end of a round, the goal is, like, if you're on coverage, is like if you can catch like any like critical game rules violation. Say, for example, like someone pays for something and it's the wrong cost, like really something that would just make the game blue screen or something like that, like really critical things. And for end of round, it's just making sure that when time is called, players are made aware of it, and also just make sure like the pace goes well. Yeah, for coverage, it's mostly like errors and also like the pace of the game, and sometimes when you can when actually you can talk and communicate with broadcast, they will actually send you information like how to set up like the board state as well. But yeah, like like related to like mistakes or errors or like triggers, which was the actual hotter topic in the past weeks. Like basically, like the rule of thumb, or at least my rule of thumb, is like if something happens in the game and I would give the player a warning, I'm gonna step in, because like basically like as soon as it's a game rules violation, we're gonna get like we give warnings. So like if I would just give the player a caution, I probably won't intervene. And then again, this is my personal outlook on it. But as soon as I see something, okay, like if I would be called, like I would give a warning to the player for this, I'm definitely gonna intervene. So that's my baseline basically.
And for those that are not in the know, something like a missed trigger beneficial is not a warning; it's a caution.
So it is a caution, but Yeah, and then again, it's really context dependent, and that's the thing that changed. Is like for triggers and like even like optional, mandatory, beneficial, detrimental. Like it's my understanding of it. It's more and more of a like case per case by context thing. That has the advantage of being very flexible, like in the way we can fix things. The problem is it's going to be harder for the judge community as a whole to be more consistent with every single, situations. That being said, I do know we were asked and encouraged by the policy team to like report like any like more complex mistriggers interaction that we encountered. If we can just send the information to them so they can so at some point they might be able to at least get a couple guidelines or try to make sure that okay, like some calls come back often and that's the usual fix. Let's try to make it consistent throughout like events. But yeah,
Right.
And also we have to keep in mind, like the players have to keep in mind, like the whole policy about like triggers and the game state is like, I mean, my personal belief is as humans, and as with everything else in life or even the universe, like things will always use the path of least resistance. So if as a player you know that like you and your opponent are responsible for every triggers in the game, like you might be incentivized to just say, oh, I'm just going to play my things, and anyways my opponent also needs to remind me of this stuff, so I don't have to care like to make as much effort as I maybe should to remember my things, because like I can just put the onus on my opponent, like, oh, like it's his fault I forgot my stuff. And same for judges, because if as judges we have to keep everything like pristine as far as board state goes and even triggers, then the player can be, oh, there's a judge sitting, so I'm just going to play and I don't need to care as much or be as much like mindful of my triggers because the judge is going to be there and just going to remind me. So it's kind of like to avoid those situations. And I'm not saying that people will actually like think this maybe out loud, but sometimes it might be just subconscious, just because if that's the policy, I'm gonna see a judge. Okay, so I'm gonna do my things, and oh, if I forget something or if I'm stressed during a play, I'm gonna do this. And if there's anything, the judge will stop me anyways. So I do believe that's the kind of things like I would believe like the rules and policy team want to avoid, and this is why the policy is what it is you like as a player are the only and sole person responsible for the triggers you control, and that's it. Yeah. So like you don't even on a subconscious level, you cannot put that on your opponent or on a judge or anyone else. And I do have a good example of that that we had actually in Vegas. We had a match where we had it was a Dromai mirror, and we have one of the Dromai players had a Themai in play, and they were going for attack for lethal, and their opponent started like cast Sigil of Solace, which with Themai in play they cannot play.
Yeah.
But this is not a mistrigger.
It's not a mistrigger. Yeah, it is not. But it's still like it's an effect that the player had in control.
Yeah.
And actually, like when they were communicating, and that player was like, "Oh, okay, so you played, so you gain 6." Like the player himself was not even aware of the Thamais, and at some point we had to step in. Oh, by the way, no, you cannot play this card. When we realized, oh wait, there's a Thamai in play. But even like the player himself, like, I mean, was not like actually forgot his own effect. So this was okay to intervene because like basically the player was not like it's not a trigger, it's an effect in play. The player was not like legally allowed to play those spells, so we stepped in. But yeah, like we're a couple of judges, and like one of them pointed out, oh wait, there's a Thamai in there. So even like the judge at the table, like at first didn't notice. Because yes, sometimes, and also keep in mind, like as judges and we're still human. So even on coverage, sometimes like we may miss things because we need to stay focused. We need to sometimes note life totals. So like it may happen that sometimes that we may not know all of the cards by heart as well. Like we try to know as much as we can, but at some point we're still human. So
yeah, no, this is a fascinating topic, Fred, and One thing, I mean, first of all, one analogy that I like to make myself is if I lock my car with the little key fob, I mean,
Mm,
I hit the button to lock the door. It's my responsibility to hear the car beep.
yeah.
It's just the little follow through or announcing triggers. But just going back to the role of judges here, I talked to my wife about this whole miss trigger thing, specifically the issue that happened during the UK Nats tournament, and she was actually very surprised that judges were not required to step in and actually forbidden. You know, and her gut reaction as someone that's not a judge is that what's a judge there for? Like, what is the point of you if you're not there
Mm,
to enforce the perfect, proper game state? And I do sympathize with that view because, I mean, even recently, we have guidance that says triggers, like mandatory triggers, are mandatory. And some people find it difficult to square up that concept that mandatory triggers are mandatory and we should try to repair the game state to as if they went off or as if they triggered,
mm,
with the non-intervention of judges for beneficial triggers. And I think that that difficulty is one of the reasons why this topic has been such a hot topic for so long, because maybe people's gut reactions make them feel one way until you explain something exactly like you did, that okay, well, if it's both players' responsibility, then suddenly it's my opponent's responsibility to remind me about every single thing, or it's the judge's responsibility, and if they miss it, then you know the judge gets a penalty. Like,
yeah. Or I cheat, but you do get a point. Like when this happens, oh, it's not my fault; it's the judge's fault.
yeah,
So we become accountable for those things,
yeah,
and like
Mhm.
as much as if there was a way for us to be able to enforce and know the rules like exactly like an online client would, like some of those things like a miss trigger or stuff, like if you play on another game on an online client, like it's basically a computer program, so the game will stop you or will enforce it. But until there's technology that make us humans like think 100% like a machine,
yeah,
like it is a lot of accountability, and I think it's a good thing that we do not have it for now, because otherwise, and then
Yeah.
again, that's my personal opinion, but at some point, like it would end up deresponsibilizing the player from their own born state, and I don't think this is something good for the health of the game or any competitive for the competitive game and for the game as a whole. So, and I always like I've talked with people about like the tunic and stuff, like finding ways to not forget, and I'm like, why are you putting so much energy into finding ways, and when you can just train yourself of basically you start your turn, you just say tunic, don't pick, just say the word, take up tunic, 3 words, like 4 syllables. That's all you
Yeah.
need to do to avoid any problems ever. Every single turn, take up tunic. Don't try to get sleep. Why are you spending so much energy when you can just think about saying those 4 words and that's it?
I think one of the things to this topic that we're talking about, though, is players knowing the difference between a beneficial trigger and a mandatory trigger. And I think that's maybe some gray area why
Yeah,
it's such a struggle
yeah, I
to get
agree, and
past this.
it is great. Like for example, Briar, embodiment of Earth. It is a beneficial trigger. So, say for example, like I'm just gonna ask the question. So you have a Briar player. They have an attack. The attack hits. They should create their embodiment of Earth, and they don't.
Hmm.
Usually, I mean, sure, it was a beneficial. Well, the trigger leads to a beneficial effect. They forget it, and well, that's it. Like say it's the middle of their opponent's turn. Like it's kind of like too late. But then again, what if their opponent is an Icelander player? Is that trigger now as beneficial? Because keep in mind, like that embodiment will generate a layer at the beginning of the turn, which the Icelander player can respond. So just for embodiment alert, it's really context dependent. Like personally, I would be inclined to just, give a caution and, they forgot. But against an Icelander player, now it's different. Because maybe they forgot, or maybe they forgot on purpose because of that specific matchup. So this is like now, Briar is now Living Legend. Icelander is also LL Blitz, so it's not something we're going to see often. But then again, we have Living Legend Balharden coming in November in Barcelona. So this is one interesting situation where, depending on the context, it's a beneficial trigger that, has been forgotten. But at some point, like, you may have or you may want to fix the game state because it is relevant in a specific matchup. Of course, I'm assuming the player, just really forgot, like assuming it's all in good faith. But of course, if you give a caution to a player and they keep forgetting, now we're getting into another territory.
Yeah.
But this is one case where, a trigger can be beneficial and can actually be eventually detrimental depending on the context. So this also add a layer of gray in that whole thing because of context. Same for Ponder, and I know Ponder is also a kind of like tricky thing to try to fix when we see it happening. But I do believe in the end, like being like giving the judge enough flexibility to assess the context and fix, like just giving the latitude they need to fix things out of context. I think it's a good thing for now. Like at some point, should we get more specific cases, or maybe then again, like, because the problem, if we start with one case, then we would have to document every single case, and then it would be just unmanageable, right? So where do we draw the line where, okay, let's have a couple examples, but not document everything? It's, I'm pretty sure the guys and folks working on a policy team are having quite interesting discussions about this, like how to balance everything. And it's a really delicate balance between the policy itself, between player responsibility, opponent responsibility, judge responsibility, accountability. There's so many variables, and it's such a delicate balance. Have we achieved it yet? I don't think. Do we have like the best balance? Probably not. Are we working toward it? I'm definitely sure we are. But it's an ongoing thing, and also like the players need to be conscious of that. Like we're still, like, even with the rules, like it's still a young game. There's still things that needs to be balanced out. Like the best example I take is always with Magic. Like how many version of the rule text of Mox Diamond was made before they add the actual final, okay, now it just works the way it should work. I think it's like maybe 3 or 4 iterations. And even like some policies and stuff. So players like, and I do understand, like players want consistency and want something they can rely on for, especially during like big, like high stakes event. But at the same time, like there's still like things being ironed out. There's still gray areas. Like we are working on figuring out like what is the best way to address this to make it like, to make it still fun, interesting, and also manageable for everyone.
Yeah. No, that's really, really helpful, Fred. And just to close out this topic, I mean, it's been, again, a couple weeks or almost a month since the precipitating incident of this whole hot topic. Do you have any tips for, let's say, judges in their local community for how they can help educate their local players and just explain this policy?
The best I would say is what I do usually. I try to educate player like during armory events. When I see a misplay, when I see something, I usually like tell the player like, okay, like this happened, by the way, like we can just let it go, but keep in mind in a bigger event, like basically like share your own experience as a judge to explain to the player, look, I've had to deal with this in a bigger tournament. This is how I had to fix it. So please be mindful to not make that mistake, because if that happens and I'm being called, this is what I have to tell you, and this is what I will have to do. You won't like it. So, and just a general, for mistriggers, it's always easier said than done where, when you're judged and you're like playing a big event, but it's really like, take your time, take the time to communicate. And that's a message that we say at the beginning of every single big event. Just take your time, communicate, take the time to do your things properly, and everything will be fine. Like, it's a bit, as I was saying earlier, like, instead of trying to figure out how, like, the ways to weasel out and try to get around the rules, take that energy and put it in just having, like, tight gameplay, and just play your turns properly, and you'll be fine.
You had a freebie answer in there. You could have just referred them to the IP2 podcast, episode 22.
Yeah.
Good one,
as well.
Yeah.
Where we discuss it. I guess one more question on this topic. Have you noticed any changes in the overall mood at events based on the ongoing discussion about the mistriggers? Or
not really, to be honest. Of course, like, people had questions. Some calls about mistriggers that I had to either call or even like get a little bit appeals and just sustain the judge's ruling that yes, the trigger was missed. Yes, in that context, it was beneficial. No, we cannot repair it properly because the game has progressed way too far. So it is what it is. I would say, like, some player had concerns, but otherwise, it's basically, I just gave them the argument I just gave you, about accountability and about, putting the onus on the opponent. And, like, in the end, just, trying to slow down and try to, take your time. And really often, like, usually the players like, yeah, like, in the end, yeah, I mean, it was on me. Like, I'm trying to, like, they're trying to understand, but in the end, like, I would say most of them, especially like the more experienced and at the higher level, like they know, like, it's on them. The problem is sometimes there's like that bit of inconsistency. Like, sometimes they will forget and a judge will fix it. And then on the same event at a later round, the same situation happens. And then, the judge now does something different. So I think the main concern is more about inconsistency than the actual policy itself. And then again, it's back to the balance I was talking about, like, earlier. Like, how can we, balance all of this?
One final question for you, a little bit lighter fare. Any highlights for you this year since we last talked?
I would say the Nationals. I'm just gonna come back to Nationals, and I actually, like, just big shout out to Steven at Red Riot Games, Alba, who was our scorekeeper. Like, as far as I'm concerned, they were the MVP. They did a really, really great job helping us. The whole judge team did just such a good work. The event was successful. Also on the side, actually, I think we're all really thankful that Aurélie put such a good piece of software with Purple Fox, because, like, that single-handedly saved our event. Like, if we had used anything else or no other tool that we would use just to export data from Gem, I'm just like thinking of that situation and I'm getting anxious. I really hope this, like, getting a whole round deleted with no data is something I would not wish to my worst enemy. Like, to be honest, this is something I really hope it was. And also, by the way, I did have a talk with the LSS, the team on the Gem side. On their side, they didn't find anything like glitchy or unusual on their side. So we don't really know why it happened. Right now, I don't have the tools to try to replicate the issue. Hopefully, it's just a one thing, a bit flip, so something happened that will just never happen again. Hopefully, it's going to remain that way. But yeah, I would say the highlight is definitely the National. So it was a great event. I'm proud of the whole judge team. Everyone just did such great work. So shout out to them. A little shout out to Steven at Red Riot also. It was really fun working with him. I'm really thankful he was able to put up with me. Then again, having me pestering him with requests and questions. I knew in the end, he knew it was just I was just caring about the well-being of the event, and I was just bringing, like, things that would just improve the event. I hope it did. So definitely my highlight. On a personal level, I am looking forward, of course, Dallas, calling over there, and Barcelona. Barcelona is going to be great experience. I will actually be able also to compete at some point during the weekend. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, because on one side, it's on Sunday. There's the first Living Legend classic constructed event, which is going to be about Harden, which I'm really tempted to go, because Bilittle, Phi with stubby hammers, it's so fun to play.
Gonna blow people up.
Yeah. And then again, there's a UPF event and I'm also a big fan of UPF. I'm super excited for Friday getting my hands on the new product. So this is something I would like to also do. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but Barcelona is going to be something I'm looking forward to right now. It's going to be really, really fun.
I can't wait to hear all about it. I have one final question. Are you excited to be a pirate in Final Fantasy 14 and have a beach vacation?
Hold on. What do you mean? Have I missed something?
No, but it has to be a pirate. You have to be able to.
Oh, you mean the new class?
Yeah.
For down trail, if they do pirate, I do hope, and I'm expecting they will be inspired from the Corsair class from Final Fantasy XI.
Okay.
Which was a range kind of support-y, like basically. There's a bit of astrologian for those who play FF14. Like there's an effect of randomness in that class, and Corsair or Pirate. The Corsair was basically the gambler class. You would just generate random effects to boost your party, and if you would, a bit like in Blackjack, if you just try to get greedy, you may just bust, and then you get your whole team debuffed instead. So I'm not sure if they're gonna go that route, but a kind of like magic physical range something could be interesting. But speaking of 14, I do believe the last patch is coming out next week, or at least the patch that will close the story for Endwalker. And as an avid Final Fantasy IV fan, and knowing what's coming next week to close that whole story arc, I'm super excited.
All right. Well, we'll need to look forward to that.
Oh yeah, and actually we should wait. Assuming there's no one skipping cutscenes, we should do this together.
All right. Let's connect after. And
Fred, definitely.
Let's make a pact. Nobody's allowed to skip cutscenes.
It's a tough one. My wife skips every cutscene. It's just my cross to bear.
Unplug your keyboard.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us once again, Fred. It's always a ton of fun. And could you remind people, if they want to get in touch with you, if they have any questions about judging or JCR stuff, I guess, is there an official way to get in touch with you? And also personally, is there a way you want to be people to get in touch with you, or do you prefer to be more private?
Oh no, I would say that the best way to get in touch with me would be through Discord. My handle is Arvlad Pipe Fred, or otherwise it would be through my Judge Hub profile. There you have my email and my Discord handle. So if you want to get in touch with me, I would say go in Judge Hub. Maybe the link might be below as of right now. Just drop me an email, drop me a message on Discord if you have any questions related to Judge related things, or if you just want to have a chat, talk about Flesh and Blood or gaming in general. I'm always down to talk with people. And awesome. And thanks for having me again. Hopefully we'll have the chance to talk again soon.
Absolutely, Fred. And you can catch us on YouTube, IP2 Podcast, on Twitter, IP2 Podcast, and on Mastodon, IP2 Podcast at wraith.social. Thank you. while Fred looks at the numbers, for any listeners that are not from Canada, Saskatchewan is an interesting place. Shea's from Saskatchewan.
It's also in the middle of the country.
Yes, that's
like
right.
literally in the middle. Yeah.